Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Red Devils TV. Now, this is a bit more of a crowded panel than it is tonight. It's normally just myself or maybe another guest. But yeah, these amazing gentlemen have joined me this evening. We've got Charlotte of the Blueborough FC. We've got Holmes, who's representing Liverpool. And obviously Nick, a channel regular who does come on every now and again. But yes, obviously this is going to be our Premier League predictions for the 23 to 24 season campaign. But yeah, we'll get right into it now. So... Holmes, I'm going to ask you first. Obviously, with Liverpool, they've recently just announced that Virgil van Dijk is going to be their new captain. How do you feel that with John Henderson and leaving with Saudi Arabia? And do you think Van Dijk's going to make a quality captain for you guys?
Yeah, I think Henderson was never going to get minutes this season, so it made sense him moving on. I mean, he's been in the club for like nearly 8 years now, so I wish him all the best. And you know, he needs to be playing football and he wants to still play for England. So, you know, I ain't got a lot of Liverpool fans didn't like the fact of him going to Saudi Arabia. They said they felt that he was, with all the LGBT rights stuff he was doing, they felt that, you know, he's a hypocrite. But I think like most players, you know, when you're that age of your career, you want to get the money. So I ain't begrudge him for doing that. So wish him all the best. And he's been like a great captain for us. So can't complain. With Virgil, I felt he's always been the captain in like last 2 seasons, really. Although Henderson had the armband, he hasn't played as much with Virgil, so it made sense to me that he was going to be captain. And I think he's captain for Holland. But he hasn't had the best season last year. But I think overall Liverpool had an amazing season. So I think he's had a good preseason. So I think he'll do well this year, Virgil. And get back to a good standard, you know. So yeah, I think it's really positive that he's been made captain. So I'm excited for the season ahead.
Yeah, I can imagine. Obviously, like you said, obviously with with Henderson, obviously not maybe able to get many minutes this season, and Virgil van Dijk, you've seen him as the captain throughout the last 2 seasons. I kind of agree with that with Harry Maguire and Bruno Fernandes. Obviously, I'm not comparing Henderson and Maguire to the same level, but when it comes to the captaincy wise, I do feel like Bruno Fernandes has been more of a captain than Harry Maguire has over the last few seasons, kind of like you just said with Henderson and Van Dijk. But Charlie, I'll just come to you now. So obviously Pochettino, you've won the summer series, and how do you rate and what do you think? Are you excited for the new season under Poch, or is there a few areas of improvement that you're looking forward to seeing?
No, there's definitely still a few areas of improvement for sure. No two ways about it. We desperately need a midfield partner for Enzo Fernandez still, and we still need to bring in another sort of hybrid player attacking midfield that can play wing as well. Maybe Mohamed Kudus, for example. But other than that, mate, I think I'm delighted with what we've done so far. Yeah, it's frustrating. You know, August tomorrow, we still haven't got in our main target of the window in Caicedo. That's frustrating, but I'm hopeful that we can potentially get that one done. But all in all, mate, it's been really positive. You know, the amount of players we've got out the door is great. That the place seems to be a happy camp. We've actually, for the first time in the longest time possible, got a group of players at the club that all want to play for the club. And I think that's going to make a big difference to us this season. We look much fitter. We look much sharper under Pochettino. The pre-season, yes, it's only pre-season games that we've played. 3 teams in Brighton, Newcastle and Fulham that all finished above us last season. And we didn't actually beat any of those teams across the season at all. So, you know, looking at it that way, we've improved. Nicholas Jackson looks great. He's hit the ground running, has done as good as he possibly could have done amongst the goals. He's quick. His hold-up play is good. His link-up play is good. He's good in the air. You know, he's looking like a real find at 35 million euros. And Nkunku's done really well amongst the goals. You know, people know that he's a top player. Levi Colwell's looking good as well. He's very close to signing a new long-term extension, committing himself to the club. So things are going in the right direction. There's still a few more players that we need to move out, the likes of Lukaku, Ziyech, Callum Hudson-Odoi, etc. But the bulk of the players have been moved out. Just one big thing that needs to be sorted out is that Moises Caicedo deal. But yeah, you know, life's good at the moment at Chelsea in terms of compared to what it was last season. The preseason's been way better. We've got one more game against Dortmund early hours of Thursday morning UK time. But yeah, Pochettino's done great. And the difference already from last season is huge. So yeah, there's lots to be excited for, but I'm not expecting like anything massive in the league in terms of winning or coming top 2 or whatever. But yeah, there's definitely encouraging signs. And we've got a top squad and a great group of young talents that are only going to get better under Pochettino. So yeah, there's definitely room to be excited.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Obviously, I've tuned into a few of the summer series matches, and I tuned into the Chelsea and Newcastle game. I did feel like that Chelsea were the more standout team, and considering obviously Newcastle are the ones with European football this season, that you wouldn't think that Chelsea don't have European football because they've seemed to be really shining very well under Pochettino. I do believe the new signings are actually working, and they seem to have chemistry already, which is quite rare. Obviously, Nick, I'm going to ask you now, obviously, about Manchester United, because I personally feel like United kind of had an underwhelming pre-season, especially in America. I do feel like players like Marcus Rashford and Anthony, Bruno Fernandes, Mason Mount haven't really hit the ground running, and their chemistry does seem to be a bit all over the place. But what do you think about it? Because for me, I feel like we look quite stale in the final third. It reminds me of when you find, like, your favorite packet of crisps, you find it right in the back of the drawer, like months later, and they're all stale. You look there, you get excited to eat them, but then out of nowhere they're just stale, and you're absolutely heartbroken. That's how I feel like United attack has gone, because I was so excited to see how Eric Ten Hag's new attacking formation in the 3-1-6 formation was going to be upheld, but we still look very weak on the counter attack. We still look very pragmatic, and we look undecisive in the final third. And like Charlie said, obviously they played Dortmund in on Thursday, and United played Dortmund early hours this morning, and we lost 3-2. United just looked all over the place when it came to defensively, and obviously I know it is only pre-season, but you like pre-season is like the only time you can actually, like, it's like matches, and you can work on formations, you can work on the training ground. And once the Premier League starts, you've got so many games, it's kind of hard to adapt and change the way you want to play football. So how do you feel about United throughout pre-season?
Same as you said, just stay all, like, obviously you got the players there, obviously, Martinez, Varane. I don't really know. The team's good enough to be winning. As Ten Hag said, you've got world class players there, and when you're looking stable, it doesn't look good when you got a team that can, you're in Champions League. You're losing to Dortmund I know it's Dortmund, but you're losing 3-2, and you're looking a bit tatty.
Yeah, but again, Dortmund are in the Champions League this season, so that is obviously, we are going up against a Champions League side quality, and they are known for their counter-attack, and they're known for breaking on the pace. Adeyemi, obviously very dangerous. Obviously Chelsea, they played him last season in the Champions League, and that was a very challenging game. Obviously Charlie can confirm on that with Adeyemi. He's very fast on the break of counter-attack, and Dortmund, and kind of not just Dortmund, the entire Bundesliga, they're known for breaking out wide with pace, and then they like to cut inside into the box and kind of do tramp goals, or where they just like tapping goals almost. So I do believe obviously Dortmund are kind of a hard team to defend against, but I want to see kind of how Chelsea deal with it, and can they deal with Dortmund's aggressive counter-attack. But Holmes, I'll come back to you, and Simon Davis just says here that it's interesting because Liverpool, Chelsea and United are still in a rebuilding process, but they're too big to be struggling a bit. I do agree with you on that sense. Obviously Chelsea, Liverpool kind of had this glory and competitiveness against Man City, and being one of the top sides in Europe over the last 5 years. Obviously last season they had a bit of an underwhelming performance, but they're still a quality side, and they are in room for a rebuild. Same with Chelsea. Pochettino's their new manager, and I do believe that. Same with Manchester United. Eric Ten Hag, is this going to be his second season now for us? And I'm really looking forward to seeing how Eric Ten Hag does implement, and can he improve, because he set the standard so high last season by winning us the Carabao Cup, getting us to the FA Cup final and finishing third with our team. But now he's getting his signings. We've recently agreed our deal with Rasmus Højlund, and no doubt he's going to be a great signing for us. But Holmes, I'll come to you now. How do you rank with Szoboszlai and McAllister throughout pre-season? Obviously, I do rate Szoboszlai a lot, and McAllister has proven to be very creative for you guys. Do you think that they've been standout players, or who would you say has been your standout player throughout pre-season?
I think I was watching the Leicester game yesterday, and I think McAllister's for 35 million. I know he had a release clause, but I think he's been a great buy for us. We've missed one thing that Liverpool have lacked over the years is like attacking players in midfield. We don't score enough. We never score enough goals. I think Szoboszlai and McAllister are going to offer that. I think McAllister got like 11 goals for Brighton last season, and quite a few assists. So I mean that's quite good in a poor Brighton side, okay Brighton side when you think about it. And I think Szoboszlai, I've wanted him for ages. He can play either flank. He's quick. He's a free kick expert. corner expert. He scores goals. And I think like it was more cheaper for us to get Sloboside than it was overall than Mount, because obviously we did want Mount, but it wasn't an affordable deal for us with with our finances. But I'm excited to see both of them, because I think there's the exact type of players we need, like to feed Nunes, Salah, Gakpo, and Diaz. So I think like in terms of attacking wise, Liverpool are going to play really good football, because losing Mane, Firmino was a blow. Those three were like, and Salah, those three as a combination were really, 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 really good. We used to blow teams away. So I feel that those players are going to really help, especially someone like Nunes. I think like Nunes, we bought him for a lot of money. He struggled last season, but I think he's been electric in pre-season, scoring goals. He's creative. So I think this is the year like he'll blow up, because even when he was at Benfica, his first season was poor. Second season he blew up. So I think like a positive in terms of attacking wise, I think for me is more from the defensive side. When we put our predictions, you're going to see that I have us below Chelsea United, because I think we're missing a defensive midfielder. Henderson, Fabinho both calling him a defensive midfielder. We need a left centre back. So there's still massive holes in our team for us to be able to compete. I mean, still time in the window, but until we get those players like someone like Lavia, or we were trying to obviously get Colwell, but I knew Chelsea would never sell him to us. So I was like, I knew that was just never going to happen. So I don't understand why so Liverpool fans are thinking like Chelsea would sell him to us. But we need another. If we can get those through those holes, then we've got a chance. Otherwise, right now, I can't see us probably getting the top four. If the season was to start now, I just couldn't see it with the holes we've got in our team. It reminded me of Maradona's Argentina in 2010. They were great attacking wise, but they were just unbalanced with so many holes defensively, and that's where I feel that we are right now. So I'm hoping that we can get Lavia, because I think he's a great player, and then get another left centre back and another midfielder, and then we can challenge. Otherwise, it's hard to see us challenging the City or an Arsenal or United or Chelsea right now with the holes in our team.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, defensively, that is kind of the worry. And when you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold as well, I do believe that Liverpool also do need a new right back, because I think Trent is a very good player, but at the right back, I think that is very defensively unstable. And I do believe that he will be becoming more of an inverted player. And if Liverpool do want to learn to play from the back, obviously with that back three, then Trent obviously will have that freedom to go into the midfield. And you will be, I feel like scoring goals is not Liverpool's issue. I think defensively and keeping them clean sheets is where you're going to rely on your defence, and obviously having a defensive midfielder. United have been deprived of that for years, obviously before we signed Casemiro last season. And I do feel like that obviously the game is won and lost in the midfield. And I feel like defensive midfielders are very overlooked as not important players. Obviously Chelsea are after Caicedo, Liverpool are after Lavia. So I do believe that they are very important players. They're kind of like the bishop on a chessboard. They're not like the standout pieces, but they're so crucial to winning the game. They're actually more important than certain people make out to be. But Charlie, I'll ask you now about Chelsea. Now, with obviously we've asked about Nkunku and your other new signings, but I wanted to ask, so Levi Colwill, obviously a very brilliant upcoming young player for Chelsea, and obviously kind of had a breakout season for Brighton, and obviously Chelsea have made it clear that they don't want to sell him. Do you think that he is good enough to be a starting in Chelsea for Chelsea this season? Because I personally feel like that he's good enough to be partnership alongside someone like Thiago Silva. But do you think someone like a Badia Shield would be a lot better for Chelsea, or who would you go for your backline? Because I feel like Levi Colwill, it could put a halt on his development if he doesn't get consistent first team football.
I think he will play. He's close to signing a new contract. That news come out today, which is great, good for us. And yeah, look, I think he's going to start the season alongside Thiago Silva for me. Badia Shield still out injured. He's recovering from a hamstring issue. And he's targeting a return for the third game of the season. We've got Luton third game of the season. So certainly for the first 2 or 3 games, it's going to be either Levi Colwill partnering Thiago Silva, or it's going to be Axel Disasi, the new centre-back from Monaco that we are that we agreed a figure of yesterday, and that deal should be done in the coming days. So yeah, for sure, I think Colwell will start the season as first choice centre back alongside Thiago Silva, and then it's up to him to prove that he deserves to keep that spot. He's more than good enough to do it. He just needs to prove to Pochettino that he can be that guy. But I think from what you've seen from Colwell at Brighton, from what you've seen in the under-21 European Championships, this guy's a top defender. Yes, he's still got a lot to develop in his game. He's only 19 years of age. It's kind of scary to think how good he could become. And we've got at Chelsea now where, defensively wasn't an issue for us last season, but we're so well stocked in defence at the moment. We've got Levi Colwell. Obviously, Thiago Silva probably going to be his last season, but then we've got Badia Shield, we've got Wesley Fofana, we've got Axel Disasi, we've still got Trevor Chalobah on the book. So like the defence is set for the next good 5+ years, which is great. But yeah, for Levi Colwell, I think absolutely, if he plays regularly for Chelsea next season, which I think he can do, he's more than good enough to, and he'll get the opportunity to, then this guy will be starting for England alongside John Stones, in my opinion, at the Euros next summer. I think he's that good.
Yeah, I do believe that Levi Colwell is definitely a standout player, and that's why I wanted to mention it. Obviously, you've got a brilliant player in Cucurella as well, so no doubt, he'll be a decent player, Colwell, definitely. And I do feel like with a player like Thiago Silva by his side, he will learn so much from him, whether it is Thiago Silva last season for Chelsea or not. But anyway, we'll get right into what this video is all about, and we will start with our Premier League predictions. We'll start off with relegation, and then we will move up to top 8. But we'll kind of leave out mid-table because it's just so undecisive. But if you do want to take part in the comments down below, let me know on who you think is going to be in relegation and the top 8. So we'll start with relegation. Now, I'll go off by each position. So we'll do 20th, then 19th, and then 18th, and we'll just say it all individually. So for 20th, I have put Everton. Now, I do believe that Everton, I just feel like that there's nothing going for him. And I was thinking, I'm not going to say the team yet, but I do believe that Everton are just going to have a very underwhelming season. I know they've just signed Danjuma from Spurs. Obviously, Spurs, he was on loan at Spurs last season, but had very underwhelming performances. Just couldn't get him at starting 11. And I believe he was at Villarreal or something. And I just haven't really heard much of Everton this season. So Everton are going to be 20th, in my opinion. But Holmes, I'll ask you first on who you think is going to come 20th.
I'd love for Everton to go down, but I can't see it. I'm thinking Luton. I think just that they'll probably go down. I just don't think that that's strong. I think they've done well to get promoted, but a lot of times these kind of like newly promoted teams go straight back down. So I had Luton down as my 20th.
Charlie?
It's a tough one, this, because Luton's the obvious choice, but I don't know. I just think there's something about them that they might stay up just because of their home form. We saw Forest get one win away from home last season, but still, in the end, relatively comfortably stay up. For me, I've got a feeling that I think Forest might come bottom. I know that's a bit of a wild take, but obviously their home form's decent, but second season in the league is always much harder than the first. A lot of teams come up and have a decent first season, but it's really hard to follow it up in the second season. So for me, I think it could be a shock. I mean, I probably could be totally wrong on this, but I think Forest will come 20th. Okay,
and Nick, who do you think is going to come 20th?
I'm saying Forest as well. I know they stayed up last season, but I reckon they're going to struggle this season.
Yeah, again, with obviously Nottingham Forest as well, obviously they've recently signed Anthony Elanga as well, and they are on the verge of signing Dean Henderson from Man United. So maybe that could be a good enough reason to keep him up. But again, like we said, they had very inconsistent performances. But I would say that their best player is probably Morgan Gibbs-White, who's probably the standout player, probably a big fish in a small pond for Nottingham Forest. But I do believe he will go on and probably get sold maybe next season if Nottingham Forest don't play well at all. But I'll go on to 19th now, and that's where I have put Luton. I do believe that Luton, they have surprised me. Obviously, I didn't expect them to be in the Premier League this season. I do feel like that people will see Luton as an easy team, but you never know. Obviously, away days, Luton, you have to go through someone's back garden to get into the stadium. So no doubt it's going to be a bit of a challenge for Luton to deal with the high quality of the Premier League. But yeah, Luton are my 19th spot. Holmes, what do you think?
Yeah, I had Forest. Kind of felt, as you guys have all said, that second season syndrome that they'll go down and that they'll concede quite a lot of goals. and their struggle. So that's why I'd add Forest.
Okay, Charlie.
I've got Sheffield United. Just because, obviously I know they've done well last season to come up automatically second behind a very good Burnley side, but I haven't seen too much of their transfer business. I know I think they've sold one of their best players, forgotten his name now, to Marseille in the last couple of days. I'm not sure who's come in there. And I think they could be in trouble. So I'm going Sheffield United to come 19th.
Okay, and Nick?
I'm going Everton. I don't think they're going to do it this season. I reckon they go down.
Okay. I am also going to say for my 18th spot, I'm going to go for Wolves. Now, I know it might be a bit of a bold shout, but Wolves, obviously, they're currently banned in the transfer window. They can't bring any players in. And that, for me, I think they've just been on the decline for the last few seasons. Now, obviously, they've lost Ruben Neves to Saudi Arabia as well, who's definitely been one of their most clutch players throughout the season. So I do believe that Wolves might have a chance of going down. Now, I have put Sheffield United at 17th, but I do believe that this season is going to be much like the previous season, where there's going to be 4 or 5 teams on the verge of relegation. I feel like it's going to be very close. So, but I do think Sheffield United just stay up. But yeah, for me, Wolves do finish 18th. Holmes, what do you think?
I had Sheffield United. I just feel that their style of football, I don't think, even when they were back in the Premiership a few years back, I didn't think they were that good. And I think they're going to struggle again this year. Even though they got promoted, I just feel that I don't think that they're defensively solid enough or organised enough to stay up. So I had Sheffield United.
Charlie?
For me, this was a tough one. I was between Everton and Bournemouth, but I'm going to say Everton purely based on the fact that the last 2 seasons they've got away with relegation only just. And, you've seen it with teams in the past. You can't keep getting away with it. You will eventually go down. So for me, I think this is going to be Everton's season. It's going to be 1 season too many for them. And I think they'll go down.
Wow. So that's 3 of us that's already got Everton in. And Holmes, I'm pretty surprised that you didn't do it, considering you obviously being a Merseyside rival and stuff. But Nick, who would you go for your 18th position?
I'm going Luton. I know they've just come up, but I don't think they're going to stay up.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Obviously, bottom 3. But anyway, we'll go to 8th place now. Now, this is kind of where it gets exciting, in my opinion, because we've had the established top 6 for so long now. And now you've got teams like Newcastle and Aston Villa that now join the mix, as well as Brighton, who are also getting a very dominant side. And it's kind of like these top teams now are kind of leaving the mid-table team behind. That's why there's such a massive gap now. So for 8th place, I have gone for Brighton. Now, I know they have recently finished was it 6th place they finished under Zerba. So yeah. I do believe that European football is going to be a bit of a struggle for them, and I do feel the extra games is going to take its toll on them. But I still do believe that they do finish just outside of Europe. But yeah, I feel like at Brighton as well are going to have a very good season. But I just feel like with Europa League especially, they do come up against good teams. Obviously, teams that also drop out of the Champions League. I just feel like Brighton just won't have the squad depth to make it far in Europe, and that will cause them to drop form in the Premier League. But Brighton is my 8th position. Holmes, what do you think for your 8th position?
My 8th position was Brighton as well. I just feel that I do think Chelsea will go Chelsea. So I think losing him is going to be devastating for them. And I just can't. I think as well that although West Ham did well in Europe last year, they struggled in the Premier League. And I think Brighton are going to find it difficult juggling, going to far off countries, and being able to turn up in the Premiership. So I think they'll struggle this year. So I'm going for 8th.
Okay, Charlie.
For me, it was between Brighton and Villa, because I think Villa are going to go all in on the Conference League. The signings they've made and the manager they've got in Unai Emery, I think they should be winning that competition. That gets them into the Europa League. So yeah, for me, I think I'll go Aston Villa in 8th.
Okay, and Nick?
I should agree with Charlie what you said. Villa.
Okay then. So for me, I've obviously 7th place now. I do believe that it's going to be Newcastle. Now, I do believe, again, kind of much like Brighton, that Newcastle just get Conference League. But I feel like that, obviously, they've signed Tanala, who's a great addition to this Newcastle side, but they've also signed Harvey Barnes. Now, for me, if you're a Champions League side, I don't really see Harvey Barnes as a main alternative. So for me, Newcastle, I think that's obviously the quality of the Champions League is much higher than what Brighton are going to be dealing with in Europe. Plus, Eddie Howe has never managed a club that's been in Europe, so it really depends on how he works at that. So for me, Newcastle will finish 7th and get Conference League football and will remain in Europe. But I just believe that they're going to have a very underwhelming season this season for the expectation that Newcastle fans have. But yeah, Holmes.
Yeah, I've got 7th as Villa. I just feel like I do feel that they're going to focus on the Conference League too. They've done some good. I thought Diaby, they just he's a really good player. But I think Emery's going to want a European trophy. You know, with all the money spent, finishing high in the Premiership is not going to be enough. He's going to want a European trophy. He would have seen that West Ham won something, you know, and I think Villa's got a much better team than the West Ham team that won the Conference League last year. So I think Villa will put all eggs in that basket and go for that.
Okay, that's an interesting take. Charlie, what do you think for 7th?
I've gone with Brighton. I mean, it's a toss-up between Brighton and Villa for 7th, 8th. I've gone Brighton. I think they'll have another very good season, but I think the Europa League, exploits will really test their squad. If they do lose Caicedo, it's going to be hard to replace him. So, yeah, I've gone Brighton 7th.
Okay, and Nick?
This might be a bold shot, but I'm saying Newcastle. I just have that feeling I reckon they're going to dip off this season. Like, I know they're looking really sharp last season, but I reckon that this season they're going to dip down. But
okay,
I'll be proven wrong, but yeah.
Well, yeah, this is what it's all about. Obviously, predictions. Obviously, we're not fortune tellers. Otherwise, we'd all be out there doing the lottery, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I do believe that for me, obviously, I'm going to go for 6th place now. That 6th place, I have gone for Aston Villa. I do believe that Emery, obviously, he came through last season. Obviously, he didn't have his own summer transfer window. And I believe with players like Tielemans, obviously, Diaby also coming into the team, Emery has completely turned around Aston Villa. Aston Villa obviously in the relegation zone last season under Gerrard, and Emery's completely turned around and getting them European football was absolutely incredible. So I believe over a full season, Emery and Villa are going to be a very decent side, and especially if Ollie Watkins can retain that form that he had towards the end of the season, Villa could look like a very dangerous team in my opinion. But Holmes, what do you think for 6th place?
I've gone for Villa. I think Tonali's a very good player. But then, yeah, I'm very curious to see how he does in the Premiership, because obviously Serie A is one thing, and a lot of Italians struggle in England. But I think if he can show the form he did in Serie A, I think he's going to be a very good player. And I think Botman as well, I think he's a very good centre-back. I think he had a good season last year, and I think now he's got a year under him. He'll do well this year. And I do think Harvey Barnes, he had good stats at Leicester. I mean, he's not the most technical player, but his stats were good at Leicester. You know, he did get goals. He is pacey. And I think he'll be, I think he'll be a good player for them.
Okay. Charlie, what do you think for 6th place?
It gets a little bit tough here. I'm going for Newcastle in 6th. I just think obviously juggling in the Champions League. Yes, they've made good signings. Harvey Barnes is a good player. Tonali's a good player. I still feel they need a little bit more. The Champions League exploits as well to juggle that could affect their league form potentially. So I'm going for a Newcastle in 6th place. But again, a few signings could easily change things. But right now, I think Newcastle's 6th for me.
Yeah, definitely. And Nick, what would you say for 6th place?
I say Tottenham. I reckon they have a good season. They get in top 4, and especially if they lose Kane, obviously a good goal scorer. I reckon that's how they dip out of top 4.
Okay, right. I'm going to say this now. I completely forgot about Spurs, so they're not in my top 8. So this could be a bit of a...
Spurs weren't making it for me anyway. I was going to have Spurs like 9th or something.
That's fair, and especially if they lose Harry Kane to is it Bayern Munich that he's linked to? So that would definitely take it. But and plus, is it Postecoglou or something that they signed? So again, I've not really checked out Spurs for pre-season, but when it comes, I completely forgot about them, to be honest. I'm not gonna dig myself in a deeper hole. But yeah, I wouldn't say that an impressive season would be among their cards, but they don't have Europe, much like Chelsea. So maybe they could contain their form or maybe go after a bit of silverware. But again, I'm not going to dig myself any deeper. But this is where we get into the top 5 now. And this is where I have gone for Chelsea. I do believe Chelsea are going to improve massively. But I do just feel like that it just all really depends on if they get Caicedo, because I do feel like Caicedo is definitely going to turn Chelsea from probably the between the 8th and 5th mark to maybe challenging for top 4. I do rate Caicedo that highly. I was asked a question in the chat a few days ago about Declan Rice going to Arsenal. If he was still available, who would you rather at United, Rice or Caicedo? And I do say Caicedo because I feel like that he's just brilliant. He's brilliant going forward. He's brilliant defensively. And I just feel like that if Chelsea make that mark, a midfield two of Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo will be very dangerous, and kind of much like the expectation is of Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali at Newcastle. But yeah, for me, Chelsea do get 5th in my opinion. But Holmes, what do you think for your 5th position?
Add Liverpool, because I think based on right now our signings, without a defensive midfielder, like when we won the league a few years back, because when Fabinho was instrumental because he was so good that season, and as you said earlier, defensive midfielders are key. All the best teams have had a strong defensive midfielder, and we're lacking that. You can have amazing attack, but our midfield is not there. So obviously, it's still the window's still open, but present right now, based on how I look at the team, I think our attack's amazing, like I said before. I just think we lack that defensive midfield and defense solidarity. We're too open still. So if we were to fix that with some transfers, then I'd put us high up the table. Sorry, but right now I have us as a 5th based on our squad.
Okay, and Charlie?
5th for me is I think right now I was torn between Chelsea and United, but I think I'll probably just go us purely because we haven't signed Moises Caicedo. If we sign Moises Caicedo, then I think that does elevate us into the top 4. But yeah, unfortunately, because we haven't got him in at this point in time, it was close between us and United, but I'm going to say Chelsea 5th based on the fact that we haven't got Caicedo in.
Yeah, and also just want to quickly ask you, I completely forgot, what is the goalkeeping situation like at Chelsea?
Robert Sanchez from Brighton should be coming in soon.
Brighton are going to hate you, aren't they? They've obviously taken on.
Yeah, I mean, but they to be fair, they don't want him, so this is not as problematic as the Caicedo negotiations. But yeah, Robert Sanchez is going to come in as competition for Kepa. I don't know what the price is or anything like that yet, but the first bid's gone in. So yeah, hopefully in the next day or so, there should be a bit more information on that. But yeah, I've got Chelsea as 5th at this point, but I say Caicedo signing, that puts us in the top 4, I think.
Awesome. Nick, who would you go for 5th place?
I've got Liverpool as well. Obviously their defense is not great at the minute, but obviously they've got Nunez, Salah. I reckon Nunez is going to have a good season, but I don't reckon they quite get top 4.
Okay. So I'm going to go for 4th now. This is where I've gone for Arsenal. Now, I do believe that the season that's just gone was Arsenal's way to win it, and unfortunately, they bottled it, and City end up winning the treble. So that is obviously very painful to say as a Man United fan. But I do believe that Arsenal are going to secure top 4. But again, much like what I said with the relegation situation, I do believe that this probably about from 5th to 1st is going to be a very close battle for the points. And I don't think it's going to be a massive margin of difference. But I do believe Arsenal just scraped top 4, as obviously they are now in Europe. They're in Champions League. And yes, they were in the Europa League last season, but I believe they dropped out. Was it the round of 16 or something? So they didn't really venture deep into the Champions League. But I do believe that Arsenal will get 4th. But Holmes, what do you think?
And my 4th was United. And the reason why United as 4th was purely because I felt that although they bought that Højlund, is how he pronounced his name?
Højlund, yeah.
Højlund. I think he's a very good young player, but we don't know how well he's going to do in the Premiership. It's a different beast. Like Serie A is one league, Premier League's different. And we saw obviously last year with Anthony. We saw flashes of brilliance, but he struggled in the Premiership in terms of his output. He only scored like 4 goals. Sanchez struggled. So I think like United are still probably too dependent on Rashford. And I think he's a fantastic player, Rashford. But I think I saw last season he was having to do a lot to score goals for you. And I think if if your new striker is phenomenal, then yeah, maybe you can get high up the pitch, high up the table. But I think you're going to rely on Rashford again. And I think you could probably do with another top forward up there to support the two of them. 'Cause I'm not sure Sancho is. I think he's too much reminds me of like a Dele Alli, where he doesn't put the effort in.
Yeah, and obviously I'll just jump in there because obviously that is about my club with United. But I do believe obviously that pre-season's been very underwhelming for United this season. We've struggled to score goals. Mason Mount, like I mentioned before, just hasn't really hit the ground running like I thought he would. Now that is a bit of a disappointment because I'm really looking forward to seeing how Mason Mount does develop. But the midfield of United at the moment just seems very like the chemistry just isn't there. And going forward, it's like we're just missing something, which I do believe Rasmus Højlund is. Now, obviously, United have recently spent 75 million euros, including add-ons on Rasmus Højlund, which is a massive investment. And I believe that for a price like that, you do want a consistent striker that does make a difference as soon as he's turning. But that's for another video. Obviously, Charlie, I'll go for you for your fourth position.
Oh, I've gone for United in fourth. I just think that. I think they've had a good window. I think Onana's going to be a good keeper. I think Højlund is potentially a good signing, but again, it's a lot of money for someone that is still, very raw, very unproven. He's only got 20 league starts in top 5 league. 9 goals in Serie A last season. Like, obviously, there's potential there, but United need a goal scorer like instantly. And Højlund, for me, is not going to come in and instantly score goals at United. He would have almost been like a rotation option with Harry Kane if you could have obviously possibly got him. So I don't know if Højlund's going to get you the goals you need straight away. See how Mount settles in. The defense is still maybe a little bit suspect. So I've got United in fourth, but again, if they make another couple of signings, maybe they could push a bit higher up. I think they'll come fourth, which is a bit of a regression on last season, but I think the league's stronger.
Yeah, definitely. And that's obviously what makes the Premier League the best league in the world, because it's so competitive now. Obviously, that's what leagues like La Liga, the Serie A have failed to do. And that's why obviously you get teams like Brighton, Brentford, who do obviously give the established top 6 a run for the money. But Nick, I'll ask you now, what do you think for fourth place?
I got Chelsea. Obviously, they've got a lot of players out the club. If they get Caicedo, and they'd be a brilliant player. And obviously, they've got Poch as manager. I think he's going to have a great season.
Okay. So third place, I have gone for Liverpool. Now, Holmes, you might be a bit surprised at that, but I just feel like that it was a very blip season for Liverpool last season. Now, I do believe that Romeo Lavia will be a Liverpool player, and again, much like the Højlund situation with Man United, he is very unproven. Now, yes, he did play for Southampton last season, and he is a very young defensive midfielder, but I just feel like I rate Klopp more than Pep. I really believe that Klopp is the best manager in world football. And if you give Klopp an open checkbook, much like Pep Guardiola has at Man City, I believe Klopp would have won at least the treble at least 2 or 3 years ago, because I do rate him that highly. I do believe you've got a very special manager in Jurgen Klopp, and with Salah, I think that he's definitely one of the most complete forwards in world football, and I do feel that Liverpool will be a dominant threat. And like I said before, I don't think that Liverpool's issue is scoring goals; it's more maintaining and preventing goals. So this is where I'm looking forward to seeing how Liverpool do perform. But I do believe they establish themselves back in the top 4. But Holmes, who do you think for third place?
I had Chelsea, because I think obviously last year for them was a blip, in terms of there's a lot of overhaul. I don't think Potter was the right manager for them. I think it was too big a job for him when he went there. And I think Pochettino is a much more. Even though I've got question marks about Pochettino, I think he's a much better manager than Potter. I think he's more organised. He's a better tactician, and I think Chelsea got vast resources. They're able to buy players and send them out on loan, like big players. And I think that Ukrainian lad is gonna
Mudryk.
Yeah, I think he's like insane. He's fast. He's skillful. I think last season he was adapted to the Premiership. I think he's going to blow up this year. And I think Martin Jackson up top, I think he's a very good player. So I feel like Chelsea got enough there to finish third. And they have the depth as well. So, and I think Cowell's going to have a massive season for them. The reason why I probably wouldn't have Chelsea in the top 2 is because I still have my doubts over Kepa. I still don't think, compared to the old top keepers that Chelsea used to have, like Cech, I don't think Kepa's on that level. I still think there's issues around him in terms of concentration and dealing with crosses. So that's the only thing that holds them back. But if they get Salcido, I think I'd put them up second if they get him. But it's whether or not they're willing to pay the 100 million.
Okay. Charlie, same for you. Obviously, third place.
I've gone with Liverpool for third. Actually, no, not Liverpool. I've gone Arsenal third. I know they've had a good window in terms of getting Declan Rice in, Urian Timber. Obviously, bought Kai Havertz as well. Arteta thinks, he's going to be good. Linked with David Raya as well, possibly. But I was looking at Arsenal. I just don't see them being able to push on from what they did last season. I think that was a bit of an anomaly season for them. And I think they're still good enough to finish in the top 4 for sure. And I think they're ahead of the likes of United and Chelsea at this point in time. But I can't see Arsenal contending for the title again. So I'm going for Arsenal to come third.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I mentioned before. Obviously, I do believe that Arsenal are I think that it was their season to win it last season. They just obviously City, despite having Erling Haaland, I thought they were a lot weaker last season. But I guess we all have City in the same position for this season as well, despite them obviously losing out on players over the years, especially over last season and this season. But Nick, I'll come to you now. Who is your third place?
I've gone Arsenal as well. As you both said, I believe last season was their season to win it, but they didn't. Obviously, they got a lot of young players which have potential, but obviously Arteta's getting to where they want, but I don't reckon they're there yet. But
yeah,
as you saw, like Zinchenko obviously was like getting the pressure. It was just the pressure was getting to them. Obviously, City, unfortunately, City are always there. Obviously, City's got the players, the depth. They've lost players, but they've still got a team to have the experience and hold the pressure, and obviously Arsenal aren't there yet.
Yeah, and obviously this goes on to second, and this is where I'm going to be a biased Manchester United fan. I'm going to put a second because I do feel like that Erik ten Hag has completely shocked us for the expectations he's brought. No one put United in their top 4 last season, including myself. I thought that if we could just get playing expansive and attractive football and we still finish 7th, that would have done the deal with me and maybe do something well in silverware. But I feel like that Erik ten Hag set the standard so high that he's going to demand from his players that he wants them to progress. And I think this season's all about seeing what type of manager Erik ten Hag is like. Obviously, he's done really well for Ajax before he came to Manchester United, but last season, it was clear he doesn't have the quality of players to actually play the football that he wants. And now he's got a few more of his signings. No doubt we'll see Erik ten Hag's attacking formation develop, and that just really works on if it does suit the Premier League. But I am hoping that United do get second and we do show progress of last season. And I'm not going to predict Carabao Cup or FA Cup or Champions League for United. But right now, I would say that because this season will be so competitive, I'm hoping that with the fortress Erik ten Hag and United made in Old Trafford last season, obviously we were pretty much undefeated all season at home. So I do look forward to seeing our away form hopefully to improve than what I did last season. But Holmes, I'll ask you now, who do you think for second place?
Yeah, this is a toss up between Chelsea and Arsenal for me. Because the reason why I had Arsenal second is just because I thought Declan Rice, I think he's a good player. I think he will improve their midfield. I think that Timber guy is very good. I think Havertz will struggle at Arsenal because I don't think they're going to be able to fit him in their formation. I think that's the issue he had at Chelsea. He couldn't fit into a specific position or formation. You don't know whether he's a 9, he's an attacking midfielder. But I think that's where even Arsenal have seen in pre-season, they're struggling to fit him in. I think Arsenal are going to struggle with the Champions League. They always struggled in the Champions League under Arsene Wenger. And I think they're going to want to do better in that, and that's going to be I think that's going to affect them in the Premiership. So I think they'll go out of that quite early. I don't think they make out that. Depending on their group, I think knockout stage they'll be out of that. I don't think they're going to go that far. I think that's going to affect them in the league. But it depends, how what we see in terms of transfer window left. But I still think I think City will win it by the league by a big margin. So even though I'm having Arsenal just second, they're going to be miles off City, because I agree with you said they bottled the title last year, big time. I think that's going to paint in their mind that they don't have the mentality to keep up with City.
Yeah, and obviously that obviously Gary Neville, I don't know if any of you watched the Overlap podcast, but Gary Neville said that when he was a player, it was clear that obviously having that mentality towards the end of the season is the key part to what makes you champions or not. But yeah, I do believe that Arsenal are still a very good side, but obviously that's why I put them at third place, or was it fourth place? I can't remember. No, I put them at fourth place. But obviously, Charlie, who do you put for second place?
I've gone with Liverpool. And this is purely based on them signing Romeo Lavia and maybe one more midfielder. But I look at them and I think, they're set well defensively. I think Alexis McAllister is a fantastic signing. I think Dominic Szoboszlai is a great signing as well. Going forward, they're stocked really well. I think Darwin Núñez will have a good season. They've got Gakpo, Salah, Jota, Luis Diaz. Going forward, they're phenomenal. I think it was a bit of a one-off, a bit of a dip in form last season for them. Yes, Europa League, be interesting to see how they juggle that one. It's always a bit more difficult playing Thursday, Sunday when that starts. But yeah, I think Liverpool will emerge as the closest challengers to City this season. Sorry. So I've gone Liverpool second.
Yeah, that's a good, interesting take. And obviously Liverpool, like we've all agreed, like Holmes, did you put Liverpool fifth, was it?
I put us fifth purely because I've been watching pre-season, and although we scored lots of goals against Leicester, we were so open. And that was our Achilles heel last season. Like Fabinho, Henderson, the legs had gone. We were overrun a lot of times in midfield. So you need a top defensive midfielder to win a league title. That's why City are so good with, because they've got those top defensive midfielders, and that's what we lack.
Yeah, and Nick, I'll come to you now. Who do you think for second?
I've got United.
Good lad.
Only because we've got the players. As long as they play as a team, like Casemiro, the defence, Onana coming in. If Mount settles in, if Haaland can be a superstar in his first season like Haaland and can put in the goals, but I still reckon City are going to get the season, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do believe that's a bit of a massive shout comparing Højlund and Haaland together. I don't think that if United could get Højlund scoring that many goals, that'd be absolutely sensational. But I feel like with players like Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount, I do think that we do lack that natural striker. And I even though I do believe that Romeo Lavia, I do believe that with Rasmus Højlund, I do believe that it will take him a while to adjust. Obviously, he's had no preseason with Manchester United, so I don't think he'll be hitting the ground running straight away. But I think with a player like Bruno Fernandes, obviously Mason Mount as well, having that extra creativity from midfield, it will be quite interesting, because I haven't been this excited over a striker since Robin van Persie, because Zlatan was past it, Ronaldo on his return was past it, Weghorst, Igalo, Cavani, all the strikers we've had over the last probably 5 to 6 years just haven't been very exciting, or they've been past their best. So I would say that Roman Lavia with Højlund, I do believe that he will make a difference, and United will finally have a decent striker. And what I like about Højlund is that when he misses a chance for Atalanta or Denmark, he doesn't throw his arms around in the air. He's straight away like, right, have I just lost that ball, or the goalkeeper's just saved my shot? I need to go press in and get that ball back. And this is what I love about him, because it's clear why Erik ten Hag wants him, because he brings us that press from the front, and Erik ten Hag's system is all about pressing and not letting the opposition breathe and be comfortable on the ball. But first place, I do believe that it is going to be Man City. Now, maybe Man City could have a bit of a drop-off season, but I still rate them highly, and I think that the expectation for City is first. Anything else below is an underachievement in my eyes. They have to win the Premier League, because they have proven that last season especially they are probably one of the best sides in Europe. But with Man City, I feel like that losing Riyad Mahrez, losing Gundogan, I do feel like that will affect them. But I feel like with the strike force of Jack Grealish, obviously he had a very good season from last season. Erling Haaland, obviously, as well. You've got Julian Alvarez. They've got two very good strikers. And defensively, they're just as solid as a mountain. They're absolutely compact. And it's clear with this new system that Pep Guardiola's formed, where John Stones is almost like a midfielder now. It's unbeatable. And City are very good. But who knows? Gundogan and Mahrez have proven to pull City out of these tough situations so many times. I mean, you look at Gundogan, he scored the 2 goals in the FA Cup final, pretty much carrying Man City to that trophy, which ended up winning them the treble. But yeah, for me, Man City, despite losing the players, they will still have enough to win the league. Holmes, who do you think for first place?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I think obviously City will finish first. I do think Gundogan's going to be a big loss because I think he's been an outstanding goal scorer for them. I think what might affect City is the Champions League, because only Real Madrid have managed to defend the Champions League in the last 10, 20 years. No other great Barcelona side could retain the Champions League the year after they won it. So if he wants to retain that and put his name as folklore, will that distract City is my question. One thing, because that's going to be a big tournament for them, and I think they're going to be looking at Real Madrid and thinking, we don't want them to win a 14th or 15th Champions League. So I think that's going to be a loss. Mara's going, it's going to be a loss for them. And I think if they get Garvidol from Leipzig, I think he's going to be missing piece for them, because he's an outstanding player. But Leipzig obviously are playing hard ball with them. Haaland, I think, is going to have it depends on how good Haaland is as well. I think he had a very good season last year, but teams are going to be much more onto him this year. So I'm not saying he's not going to score goals, but he might find it much more harder this year because of that. But I still think with the squad City have, they'll still finish first, and they'll still finish well clear of anyone else, because they've got the best depth. They're proven winners, and they know how. Even if they went out of the Champions League, they still know how to get over the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, Simon Davis says something interesting here by saying that Haaland is due an injury. Trust me. So Haaland did. I mean, Simon is quite a regular in the comments, and he is a Man City fan, believe it or not, on a United fan channel. But I do believe that it might be true. Obviously, Haaland is known for an injury. He was injured quite a few times for Dortmund and Salzburg. He does have an injury inside him. I don't know whether that's because when Roy Keane decided to completely snap his dad in half, it might have affected his bollocks, but I'm not too sure. So I do feel like that City do protect Haaland quite well, and that's why he does get subbed off every now and again. But yeah, Charlie, I'm going to guess that you're talking about City first, but just let me know if I'm wrong. Maybe you've gone for someone like, I don't know, a random team.
Nah. You can't look past City. Yes, this summer's not been great for them so far in terms of income. They bought in Mateo Kovacic, who will be a good player for them. And no other major signs have come in yet. Yes, they've obviously going to need to replace Riyad Mahrez. They get Josko Vardiol. That's going to be a fantastic sign for them. They don't need that many. That's the thing. And one thing with City is you don't need to worry about them, because they always get their recruitment spot on. They always know when the right time to move players on is. People were saying, they got rid of Sterling, Jesus, Zinchenko last season. People thought they're going to struggle. They didn't miss any of them at all, one little bit. So, City always get it right. They always know when to move players on. And actually, when you do have a level of success like winning the treble or winning trophies and that, then, you do need to refresh the squad. You do need to bring new players in, fresh blood in to go again. And I think that's where we went massively wrong after winning the Champions League in Porto, is that, we didn't refresh the squad enough. We brought in Lukaku and then we signed Saul and Bettinelli, and that was it. That's not good enough. So for me, yeah, City, that there's no reason to look past them. They don't offer any evidence to suggest that they're going to be in trouble this season.
Yeah, I do believe, obviously, that's a great observation. Obviously, Kovacic, and like you said as well, obviously, people thought last season they would struggle losing Sterling, Jesus, and Zinchenko. But again, like you said, they didn't look like they missed them at all. But yeah, that just shows that the type of organisation that City have, like you said, with the recruitment, they always seem to get it spot on when the right time is to move on players. Obviously, João Cancelo is back with Man City, but he hasn't been sold yet. So I do feel like that. I don't know what's going to go on there with João Cancelo, but I still rate him probably one of the best fullbacks, definitely one of the top 10 fullbacks in the world. I do think he's absolutely world class. But Nick, as well, obviously asking you're probably going to say Man City, but let's hear your reasoning for who's your first place option.
Man City, as you said, they're proven winners. They've got the depth. They can handle the pressure. They've lost players, even if they didn't replace them. They've still got the mentality to do it again. Unfortunately,
yeah, and that's the thing. Obviously, they're complete mentality monsters with Man City are. So I do look forward to seeing how this season is going to turn out. It is very exciting. I do believe that each season that goes by, the Premier League just gets more and more exciting. And this is what's brilliant about the Premier League. Obviously, we've literally just mentioned the top 8, and either any of them can get Europe, or even any of them can have a dip in form. Probably not Man City, but any team can do well this season, and that's proven to be the fact over the Premier League over the last few seasons. But guys, obviously we have hit nearly the hour mark now. Obviously, I'm not going to keep any of your time anymore, but you guys have been amazing guests. So can you just let everyone know where we can find you?
Just you can find me on Twitter as LFC _Holmes.
On Twitter is @CharliePatrick0, and of course YouTube Blue Brother CFC as on the screen, and you can also see me over on Chelsea Fan TV as well.
Awesome. And Nick?
YouTube Finley Nicholas Football Review.
Awesome. Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Obviously, thank you for the audience as well. You've all been great. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all very, very soon. But yeah, thank you guys, and have a good evening.
Cheers.
Take care.